Namaste, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the one thing that I did that certainly helped me change my life, and it can help you change your life too. So today, we're going to be talking about a very powerful tool that just about anyone can use to help them improve the quality of their life. Now, if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression and codependency and who suffered from trauma, this news that I'm about to share with you might seem almost impossible. It might not make sense to you. I just ask you that to have an open mind and to just listen the first go round and let it sink in as I share a story with you, in the hopes that it will open you up to the possibility of you being able to change your life the way I have been able to change mine. First of all, I'm not coming from a braggadocious place. I'm coming from a place where I hope that I'm able to inspire and motivate people to think about what I'm about to share so that you can change your life. And like I said earlier, if you're struggling with anxiety and you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with codependency, what you're about to hear me say might take you by surprise. And I totally get it. And so let me tell you a story, and hopefully that will set the stage and help you better understand where I'm coming from. So as many of you know, I grew up in a codependent home. A home where my parents, in my opinion, were very enmeshed. I believe that my dad struggled with more narcissistic traits and my mom was more codependent. At least that's the way it presented in their relationship. When there was no one around, my mom could be very critical and condescending, judgmental, passive-aggressive, and rageful. Now, these are not qualities or attributes that she allowed to surface when there were other people around. These types of qualities were reserved when she was alone home with my brother and I and my sister. And so it was very confusing growing up in our home because everything looked perfect. But my mom especially was two different people. From the outside, my mom looked amazing, and no one would guess that behind closed doors, she was so full of anxiety. And I think, I'm going to make an educated guess, that she was also suffering from depression and guilt and shame, and worried that she didn't have a right to feel that way, which prevented her from seeking help and caused a lot of the distress inside the home and added to the enmeshment in the family. So when we're talking about, children, we have to recognize that in order to be a well-adjusted adult, a happy adult, you needed to have a happy childhood. Makes sense, right? A happy childhood becomes a happy adulthood. But what happens if you're somebody from a childhood where you weren't very happy? You struggled with loneliness. You struggled with abandonment. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe your parents were alcoholics or narcissistic or abusive. Maybe you were adopted out and you ended up in foster care. Maybe you had a great experience, but what if you didn't? What if you grew up and your childhood was never satisfactory? Is it fair for you then to judge yourself as an adult if you struggle with anxiety and depression? I don't think so. I think what goes in must come out. As it is below, so shall it be above. If you struggle with anxiety and depression as an adult, it's really important that you ask yourself, well, what kind of childhood did I experience? What was it like for me growing up? And that'll give you at least some idea or some notion about why it is you might be struggling today. Now, after my divorce, which was very difficult because I was so codependent and I lacked a true sense of self. I had no sense of self. My identity came from being a mother and a wife and a business owner. And the value I placed on myself, or the worthiness I placed on myself, was tied to how well I was able to make other people happy. When your identity is tied to such things that exist outside of you, you're never happy. Your cortisol levels are high, you suffer from anxiety, you're always worrying, you're always ruminating, and it's very difficult to feel like you have something to look forward to, because in your head, life is about working for other people, making other people happy. And when you don't have an identity, you don't know who you are. You don't know what you like. You don't know what you want. And so that's why it's easy for codependents to manifest people with larger than life personalities who seem to know what they want, rather than feel like an equal half of a relationship. Very oftentimes a codependent will just follow what the stronger personality wants to do and how they feel, and they acquiesce and they fawn to keep the relationship status going so that they don't have to feel abandoned and or create some type of a conflict, and thus perhaps, struggle with the possible loss of the relationship. When you grow up feeling invisible, as an adult, you are not honoring yourself, and that's how you get into trouble, because you end up doing things out of obligation, and when you do things out of obligation, you end up feeling frustrated and angry, and that's just inevitable. After my divorce, and after I realized that I had zero support from my brother, my sister, and my mom and dad, I very much felt alone, and my abandonment wounds were way open. They were like, in plain sight. It felt like that they had sliced a carotid artery, that, I just felt so alone and so afraid in this world. And here I was, I had 3 children, I had to take care of them, and my anxiety was through the roof. I didn't know I was suffering from depression as bad as I was, and I hadn't identified. I thought anxiety was something that you experience once in a while. I didn't realize that I was an anxious person, and I was suffering from anxiety day in and day out. I never realized that I was living in survival. I didn't know how hard my life was. I didn't have the contrast of peace. When you're struggling, you've never known peace. You don't have the contrast of peace, so you don't even know that you're struggling, and that was my situation. And one day during a severe anxiety attack, I began to understand that I needed to change my thoughts, that I was chasing my thoughts down a rabbit hole, right? Or my consciousness was chasing a thought down a rabbit hole. And the law of attraction is, if you think about inertia, an object in motion stays in motion until acted upon by a force. You think about any energetic force in nature or man-made, we have a mass consciousness, and when a group of people believe in one thing, we have a force. And until that force loses momentum, or until a greater force opposes that force, the original force stays in motion. And so here I was contemplating the law of attraction and how to make the law of attraction work for me. And I realized that some greater force than the negative thoughts I was thinking was going to have to come in and or build momentum over time to help me manage my life and manage my thoughts. Because if you're not managing your thoughts, you're not managing your life. No way. And so during a severe panic attack, I began to recognize that I needed gratitude in my life. I needed to love something. Now, when you're grateful, you're in a state of loving. And when we're loving, we're actually experiencing a helper's high. Like when you're giving, you experience the helper's high. You're loving. You're in a state of gratitude and appreciation, which is the opposite of anxiety and depression. And so right there in my kitchen with my children sleeping, while I was having a severe panic attack, I made the decision to change my thinking. And gratitude was the emotion that I chose, or the state of being that I chose to help me do that. So during this panic attack, I don't know how you experience anxiety and or panic, but how I experienced the panic attack that day was I couldn't feel my hands and I couldn't feel my feet. And I held my hands under the water, put the faucet on until I could actually feel the temperature of the water. Because when I put my hands under the water, I could not feel the water and I was terrified. And so what I did was I began to say to myself, I'm so grateful for water. I'm so grateful for the faucet. And I took control over my focus because my inner mind had been hijacked. And all I could hear myself saying was, what if you can't pay the bills? What if you can't pay for the car insurance? What if you can't pay for the house? What if you can't buy the kids sneakers? What if you can't pay the doctor's bills? What if? And I didn't realize at the time, I didn't have that much control over my conscious mind at the time, nor did I recognize the subconscious programs that were running the ship as much as I do now. I did not realize that my conscious field, my ability to flow my focus, was not really activated. That my ability to observe the way I think was not really activated. And so here I was in a severe anxiety attack, and I decided in that moment that I was going to slow the momentum of my negative thinking. I was going to get the law of attraction to work for me. I understood that my thoughts were like objects in motion, and they were going to stay in motion until an object of greater force interrupted the flow of their motion, where they were going. And so the emotion that I used and that I participated in very consciously was gratitude. And I am promising you that if you make a decision, if you want to have the law of attraction work for you, because the law of attraction is everything. People say to me, oh, I want to learn how to use the law of attraction. I'm like, law of attraction just is. It's operational 24/7, right? When you're sleeping, you're vibrating. You're giving off a particular frequency. You know, the law of attraction is how this world keeps itself together. You know, birds of a feather flock together. Like-minded people band together, you know. Good or bad, you know, so up, down, left, right, this is the way it works. And so it's always in action. The question is, how do you use it deliberately? How do you use it consciously? How do you get the law of attraction to work for you to help you bring about the type of life that you want? Well, you have to recognize that inertia is always in play, and that what happens in one space happens in all space. And so as it is with the moving car, so as it is with moving thoughts. You are building up momentum as you go. And as it is with the car, the faster your thoughts go, when you hit a wall, the greater the damage. And so the more unconscious you are, the more negative your thoughts are, the more damage is going to happen. You'll meet somebody, a narcissist, for instance, who rocks your world, and that pain wakes you up. Well, if you're driving a car and you're accelerating and you swerve out of the way to not hit a squirrel and you hit a wall, you're going 100 miles an hour, that's going to be devastating because you were speeding. If you were to slow down and you wore your seatbelt and you didn't approach driving like a rush and you weren't trying to text and you weren't trying to turn the station on your radio and all these other distractions weren't bothering you, then if you swerved out of the way and you hit a wall, devastation wouldn't be that bad. It's the same thing with thoughts. And so when we're not managing our thoughts, we're not managing our life. And so I realized I wasn't managing my thoughts. I realized that panic and anxiety and what if thinking had taken me over. And so right there in my kitchen, I decided to milk a new vibration. I decided to work with the emotion and the state of gratitude. And when I began thanking, and being grateful for the water, when I started to be grateful for the faucet, then I looked around my house and I said, I'm going to force myself to be thankful for everything my eyes fall upon. I'm so grateful for that coffee table. I'm so grateful for that refrigerator. I'm so grateful for the food in the refrigerator. I'm so grateful for the windows. I'm so grateful for the curtain. I'm so grateful for the rug. It's a crappy rug, but I'm so happy for that crappy rug. I've got a roof over my head. It leaks a little bit, but at least I have a roof. My children are all in their own beds. They don't have their own rooms, but you know what? They have their own beds. And I'm so grateful that I have heat coming through the walls. Yeah, I have to monitor the heat because I don't have a secure job. But you know what? I have heat coming through the walls, right? And so I'm so glad I have a sofa. I'm so glad I have a car. I just kept going and going and going. And in the beginning, it felt like it was going to take forever for me to be able to control my thoughts. But I kept at it. I got in the car that day and I said, I am only going to notice the things that please me. So it was, wow, I like that door. Wow, I like that flower pot. Wow, I like her bag. Wow, I like her jeans. Wow, I like her sneakers. Because I believed in this concept. I knew that if I could change my thoughts, I was using the law of attraction and it would work for me. Now, I'm not saying this is an overnight thing. It's not. And I am not someone whose life manifested into a YouTube channel and 7 best-selling books. Well, soon to be 7 best-selling books. I have a new book coming out soon. But 6 of the books that I have published all hit the bestsellers list. I have been in at least 4 or 5 other publications. I have written the foreword for psychologists, and I have worked with psychiatrists. I've coached psychiatrists and social workers. I'm not saying that, who I am today happened overnight, because it didn't. It absolutely didn't. It was waking up every day and being in gratitude for being able to create in my life. But the first step to being able to use the law of attraction to my advantage was being able to recognize the power of my thoughts. It was being able to recognize that I needed discipline. My mind was not disciplined. It was me recognizing what was wrong. It was me being humble and saying, oh, I can see the mistakes that I've made. I didn't take care of that thought. I didn't manage that thought. I let that thought go down a rabbit hole. What if thinking? Here's some more what if thinking. I did not stop that thought. When I say I did not stop that thought, basically what I'm saying is that I did not consciously stop a negative thought. You see, if you really wanted to, and I mean if you really, really wanted to, when you heard yourself saying, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that, if you heard yourself saying, I can't do that because I'm a victim, or I can't do that because that happened, or I can't do that because this happened, I can't stop my thoughts because that happened. If you really wanted to change those thoughts, you could. You could. You absolutely could. You'd have to change the belief that's associated to I can't to maybe I can. Right? So it sounds something like, well, if thoughts become things, and a thought is rooted in a belief, and I look at my life, does my life represent everything that I believe? And if you're a fair person, you'll say yes. I don't believe that I'm good enough. I don't believe that that's possible. I believe this person's that way. I believe those people are that way. I believe the world is this way. And if you look at your world will mirror back to you everything that you believe. If you believe that your mother is no good, if you believe that your father is no good, they might not be. My point is, if you believe that your mother is no good, even if, here's the big if, even if your mother and your father are making every attempt, honest attempts to change their life, you won't believe it. You will not believe it. You see, it's so important that we be honest about what we believe, because we all see what we believe. I have actually looked at text messages, and because I had a presupposition about someone, really did believe a text message said something it did not say. And only when I went back to read the text was like, oh, wow, that person didn't say that. That person said this. That's because we all see what we believe. Now, if you do not believe that you can get ahead, you won't. Not because you can't, but because you don't believe it. If you do not believe that you can organize your life, you won't. Not because you can't, but because you don't believe you can. And so if you want to get the law of attraction to work for you, the quickest way to do that is to start being grateful for something. Now, if you live in a dilapidated home, or if you have really, really terrible circumstances right now, you really need to find something to be grateful for. And it is my promise to you that if you decide to do this, and you take me up on this challenge, and you every single day, no matter what is happening around you, you find 5 things to be grateful for, no matter what is happening around you, even if you lost your job, even if your best friend's sick, even if your husband or your wife cheated on you, even if your kids don't want to talk to you, even if your dog just died, God forbid, even if some terrible thing's happening to you, if you wake up every single day and you say, I'm really earnestly and honestly going to find 5 things that I'm grateful for. I mean, I'm looking at my desk. I'm grateful for my watch. I'm grateful for my headphones. I'm grateful for my lead pencils. I'm grateful for my computer. I'm grateful for my microphone. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the ability to create this podcast. I'm just grateful, grateful, grateful. Now, in spite of what's happening in my world, and there are a bunch of things happening right now in my world, that I wish weren't happening, but they are. But in spite of those things, I'm going to milk a spirit of gratitude. That is going to create momentum in the opposite direction of where I found myself that fateful day when I was standing in my kitchen with my 3 kids sleeping upstairs and I was having a severe panic attack. I'm going in the opposite direction of fear. I'm going towards gratitude. Now, when you are in a state of gratitude, you are in the state of love. And when you are loving what you are grateful for, you are just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the flow state, where time gets suspended, where it is so easy to be you because you are in a state of love. If we all want peace, love, and contentment, what we have to understand is we have to become that which we seek first. And so it's really challenging when you come from a dysfunctional home and you have a family of narcissistic people and you don't like your job. It's really difficult to recognize that in order for me to change my state, I have to become what I seek. And so that's why it's really important that you recognize the power of setting boundaries that, like Oprah Winfrey talks about when she speaks to Brene Brown about setting boundaries, you have to become responsible for the energy you allow into your life. You have to become responsible for the energy that you give off. Who are you yelling at? Who are you flipping off? Who are you cursing out? Who are you persecuting? Who are you sending the message that they're not good enough? Who are you criticizing? Who are you sarcastic with? Who are you judging? When no one else is looking at you and your best friend, who are you talking about? What energy are you sending out into the universe, right? That's important to think about. And you also have to think about and be more objective about the types of energy that people are bringing into your life. The third thing when it comes to energy is really important for you to pay attention to the energy that you give out, kind, loving, empathic energy that does not return to you. So if you're in relationships that drain you, pay attention. That energy is not anything you're ever going to get back unless you start paying attention to the energy that doesn't return to you. You want to make sure that you're giving to experiences that actually uplift you. Lots of us who are unhappy on the inside or who have struggled with some traumatic experience of persecution or victimhood in the past, we don't realize how often today as adults, we're fixated on rescuing other people in the same situation. And we can become overwhelmed with the inability to stop a situation, which only re-triggers us and re-traumatizes us today. And so what I'm trying to say is it's really important, if you want to shift the way you feel, it's really important that you pay attention to the energy you give off and the energy that returns to you. It's also important that you become more objective about the energy that you give off. If you're giving energy off of condemnation, expect that to be returned to you. You will be condemned by someone else. If you want to be more peaceful, then you must become the peace you seek. It can be no other way. You see, I wanted gratitude in my life. I wanted abundance in my life. I wanted peace and I wanted love. I wanted to go for it. I wanted to be an integrated human being. I wanted to be non-attached to outcomes. I wanted to let people be who they were. I wanted to mind my own business and I wanted to live in my happy place and create what I wanted to create, and I wanted to help other creators learn how to do that too. And that meant that I had to make decisions about what kind of conversations I would hold and where I would flow my focus. And some people say, oh, you're burying your head in the sand. I say, no, I'm just choosing not to add to chaos and destruction. And I'm choosing to add to evolution and expansion and love and light. And so for people who judge me, I've had people judge me because they've said, oh, you're sticking your head in the sand, and that's okay. I want to try not to judge them back and accept where they are and stay in my own little happy place and add to the expansion, growth, and evolution of life, rather than focus on something that I can't control and be part of organizations or what have you that are built on destruction and condemnation. That I'll have no part of. So if you want to make the law of attraction work for you, it's important that you become that which you seek. It could be no other way. And it's also important to recognize the power of gratitude, becoming thankful, which is also the power of giving gratitude and the power of experiencing love in the moment. And that power is within you right here and right now. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for participating in this podcast. My name is Lisa A. Romano, and I'm so thankful and so grateful that you are here. Namaste. Until next time. Bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video, and don't forget to click the link below so you can take the codependency quiz. One of the things that a narcissist will do when they start to lose control over you is they will give you the silent treatment.